I just wondered if you could comment on how you dealt with your freedom when you finally got it and what it was like coming home and the readjustment that I'm sure you must have had. Thank you.
Quick thoughts on that, gentlemen.
Well, quick thought on return home. I don't think people realize how much change goes on year to year. And in 8 years' time, the morals of the nation, I think, has slipped a lot. And so it was kind of a shock to come back. But, you know, I went back to school, and that kind of got me back in the throes of things.
I was in the hospital for several months. And the cultural shock was just enormous, from the television to the movies and so forth. And I came back in March and went back to duty in August. So I think that helped me a lot, going directly back to duty and going back to work.
I think something that most people don't realize is that when we came back, we had more or less been living in a vacuum for 8 years for Bob and for 7 years. Whereas our families had been growing up. I mean, their life had continued. Consequently, you were different people. Like I had been married like 3 or 4 years when I got shot down, and when I came home, my wife had grown up in one way, and I was pretty much in a vacuum. I honestly thought that I could walk in. It was like I had left yesterday. Hey, how you doing? You know, boy, it's been a while, but things haven't changed. Things had changed. It was a very difficult period, and I don't think people realize that the families really had it tough, because for 3 years for me, and probably longer for a bunch of these guys, our families didn't know if we were dead or alive. And the whole time that we knew they were fine because they were living back in America, but they had no idea what was going on with us. So it was a very difficult time. And coming back, my son, when I first met him, he was 7 years old now, and he was 1 when I left. He came running up to my arms the first time he saw me and jumped in my arms, and 2 seconds later he was down on the floor running someplace else. You know, he lost interest already. But my first wife and I ended up divorcing about a year later. She's still one of my best friends, but it's just that we were different people.
Yeah, we came home, I've forgotten what the divorce rate, but some of the 1972 shoot-down told us that before we came home, they told us this, they said, your divorce rate is higher than the national average, and you know, that kind of stuff. When we came home to discover we had lost family members, children in a couple of cases, some wives thought their husbands were dead, had remarried, had spent all the money. I mean, and it was just like, how much more of this have we got to take? But all that aside, it was euphoric. And 2 quick stories. Dick Stratton, who you probably all remember bowing on Life magazine cover, he called me up after he'd been home a few weeks, and we were good friends, and I said, how's it going? He said, well, I've learned one thing. You cannot come home after this long and start kicking a dog around. His boys had long hair, and he took them all down to the barber shop and got their hair cut. I said, God. And Bud Day tells the story when he came home. Dory tells the story about when Bud came home. They had 4 adopted children, and the youngest were 2 twin girls. And they didn't know Bud. They'd seen pictures. But when she told the kids that Bud was coming home, Daddy's coming home, and as the story goes, as I recall it, they basically said, he'll be home tomorrow? Yeah, he's coming home. And they said, well, where will he sleep and what will he eat? So we came on to some different circumstances, to say the least.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Bob Shumaker, Hal Kushner, Ron Mastin, Orson Swindle. Thank you very much.
Thank you.